All right, good day, everybody. This is Chris of the Ancient Scholar, and welcome back. In this particular video, I'm gonna guide you through the basic pre-operational checks on the Hamilton-T1 ventilator. So step one, make sure that the ventilator is plugged in. You can see the little flashing green light here on the battery charge indicator. The flashing light means that the battery is charging, and then a steady green light would mean that the battery is fully charged. So we have external power. That's step one. Step two, set up the ventilator circuit. We're going to be using the coaxial tubing, and you want to remove all of the accessories, the test lung, the HME/HEPA filter, the nebulizer, all that stuff. And you just want to have this little adapter that comes in the kit. This adapter sleeve connects to the distal end of the flow sensor, and you will use that during the basic pre-operational checks. There's also this little occlusion plug that comes in the vent circuit. You can use this, or you can use a gloved hand, because at a couple of points during your pre-operational check, you will need to occlude the end of the flow sensor. Either one will work. I'll be using this plug for today, or during today. All right. And then you do definitely need this adapter, because you're going to need to place this adapter on the end of the flow sensor and flip the flow sensor around at various points during the pre-operational checks. All right, so once you have your tubing set up, what you're going to want to do is you can use the exhalation valve that comes with the ventilator, but I am going to use the exhalation valve that comes with the vent circuit, and it'll be attached to the expiratory limb of the circuit. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to remove the cap, and it actually says remove before use. All right, remove the cap, and then just make sure that the seal here, because this can kind of get pulled off pretty easily, just make sure that the seal is on and it's well seated. And then you can remove this exhalation port from the tubing, go over to the ventilator, and like I demonstrated in prior video, the opening of that port will go down. You insert into the ventilator, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. So insert, and you can see the little flanges there line up. And then make sure it goes in, and then go ahead and give it a twist to the right to lock it in place. All right, once you've done that, you're going to want to take your ventilator circuit, and this is set up to be foolproof, and you want your expiratory limb to plug into the expiratory port, and then your inspiratory limb to plug into the inspiratory port, like so. And then you're going to want to plug in your inspiratory and expiratory flow sensor tubing. The blue tube will go into the blue port here. The clear tube is going to go into the white port here. Remember, this little yellow tube is actually for the nebulizer. You will not be using that for your basic pre-operational check. All right, once your circuit is connected and your flow sensor tubing have been connected, all right, you are ready to begin the basic pre-operational checks. So what you're going to want to do is you want to come to the ventilator, and you're going to hold the power on off button down for at least 3 seconds, and then things will light up. And the ventilator is going to run through a short self-test, and you can see the little startup here. It'll run through a little test. It can take a couple of minutes. For this reason, some people actually never turn the ventilator off, but they just keep the ventilator in standby if they're using it clinically a lot. We turn the ventilator off here and store it in an unplugged manner, just to kind of help with the battery. Once it's run through, it's a basic self-test. If it passes, it'll go into standby mode. And you can see you've got your day-night screen setting here. All right, this is your basic, this is the basic screen that you'll interface from. So what we're going to do is you're going to select the pre-op check option. And you can see we have 3 options available. You've got a leak test, a flow sensor, and an O2 sensor. If you don't have an O2 sensor alarm, then you don't necessarily need to do an O2 sensor test every single time, as long as you're sure that the O2 sensor is working and there aren't any alarms you need to deal with. But you certainly need to do a leak test and a flow sensor test every single time. So what we're going to do is we are going to select the leak test first, and it will say disconnect patient. So what you're going to want to do is disconnect, and then it's going to say block breathing circuit. So we're going to block the breathing circuit with the plug or your gloved hand, as seen in the picture. It'll say test in progress. And then it's going to say reconnect breathing circuit. And that's that. If everything works, you'll get the date and time of that leak test. So at that point, we don't have any substantial leaks. The next test is going to be the flow sensor test, and you'll select, let's see if I can, there we go, flow sensor. You'll say disconnect the patient. And then flip flow sensor. So to flip the flow sensor, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to put this adapter on, and then you're going to want to take the flow sensor out, and then you're going to want to flip it like so. Now it says calibration needed because it took me too long to flip the sensor, but that's okay because I just wanted to demonstrate that for you all. So what we're going to do is we are going to run that again. Patient's disconnected. And I flipped the sensor, and it is calibrating. It's going to say flip flow sensor again. So I flip the flow sensor again. It's calibrating. And now we have passed, and you can see there's a green check mark, and you can see the date and time of the flow sensor test. At this point, you can remove this adapter because you no longer need it. You really only need this adapter for the flow sensor calibration test. And then you'll just have your flow sensor attached. You can go ahead and either occlude this, or you can attach your CO2 monitoring device, your HME, your Ballard, your test lung, etc., because you are ready to go for ventilation setup at this point in time. The ventilator will automatically, after a few seconds, go back into standby mode after you've completed your basic pre-operational checks. All right, so that is the basic pre-operational checks. What happens if you have problems, if you have a test that fails? Well, you saw earlier, I just took too much time to flip the flow sensor, and I just had to redo it. So the basic troubleshooting is step one. If you have a problem, step one is to check your circuit. Make sure that the circuit is intact, there aren't any leaks, and make sure that the circuit is tight and hooked up and everything looks good. Run the test again. If you continue to have a failed test, then check the flow sensor. make sure that the flow sensor is connected, it's correctly installed, and the inspiratory and expiratory flow sensing tubes are connected and correctly installed. Run the test again. If you continue to get an issue, or if you continue to have an issue, go ahead and check your expiratory expiration valve or your exhalation valve. Make sure that it's installed, and make sure that it is seated properly, because sometimes you can get yourself into a situation where maybe it's not properly seated and you didn't seat it correctly, right? You can see that there versus there we go, right? Make sure that the covering, the membrane, is intact and functional. All right, run the test again, and if it continues to fail, go ahead and get an entire new set of tubing to include the inspiratory and expiratory limbs, the flow sensor, a new exhalation valve, and put it together, reconnect it, and then run the test again. And if at that point the pre-operational tests continue to fail, the ventilator is going to need to be serviced by a technician.